Senator Chuchi has made her debut in The Bad Batch, and we're here to talk about that along with the rest of the 7th and 8th episodes of The Bad Batch. But make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. Welcome to Sector for Nerds. I'm Ryan Brower. I'm so ready to talk with you guys about The Bad Batch today because there is so much to discuss. And honestly, you guys, I think I want to start out with what happened at the very end of the 2nd episode. I don't think I'm going to use it as the title. As much as I really want to, I feel like that's going to be like too much of a spoiler territory. Like obviously a lot of the times I will have like some type of spoiler in the title, but you know what, I think I'll stick with, maybe I'll go with my usual stuff, right? Like insert name of character in The Bad Batch. And I assure you that we will talk about Senator Chuchi and how incredible she was in these 2 episodes. But we got to talk about something, you guys, that I actually brought up last week on this channel. Go back and watch my last Bad Batch video about Gungi in that episode. What was I saying in that episode? You know, I think we're leading to something big with Echo. I think we're going to have something where like he ends up joining Rex and he goes away. And then what happened at the end of this episode? I was crying. I was sitting there like, I freaking knew it. I've actually gone back and watched that scene a second time over again, and the way that they positioned everybody in that scene, because they're obviously having a conversation about stuff that happens earlier in the episode. You have Hunter, Tech, and Wrecker all sort of standing together, and then you have Echo sort of standing a little bit of a distance from them, sort of more towards Rex, and then you have that moment where he steps forward like beside Rex, and I'm like, wait, what are they, it's like, what are they doing? And then when Hunter says, remember what I told you, and Tech's like, good luck, Echo, and Wrecker's like, you know, don't have too much fun without us, and I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, I freaking called this. And then Omega being super sad and confused, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're really doing this right now. But as sad as I was that Echo is leaving the Bad Batch, I think it does present an opportunity here. So now we can get some episodes potentially with Rex and Echo together, and them sort of doing, you know, whatever it is that they're doing. We can maybe have some Crosshair episodes. So there's like a lot of different ways that we can take the Bad Batch from here on out. And I do believe that this is only temporary. I do think that maybe by the end of this season, we are going to see Echo back with the Bad Batch once again. But for the time being, that one remaining Domino member has rejoined his captain. There was no Crosshair in either of these 2 episodes. We have only seen Crosshair in 1 episode of this season, which is really interesting. I kind of would have thought we would have seen more of him at this point. I honestly thought that we were going to get some of him in these 2 episodes. All right, you guys, but I want to start getting into I want to get into the episodes here and talking about that first episode that we got called Clone Conspiracy. We start off on Coruscant in that clone bar that we see in the Lost Missions. I forget the name of it, but it's the place where Fives goes to hide out. He sees Jesse there and he needs Jesse to send a message to Rex. And there was a clone venting about what the Empire is doing is wrong. Rampart is lying to the Senate. And then the other clone that's with him called Slip is like so hesitant, like we can't come out with this, like it's too dangerous and stuff. But then his friend dies, and then that's when he sort of has the change of heart. So then we get the Senate, and I realized quickly, oh man, these are gonna be Senate episodes, aren't they? I feel like I always have less interest in Star Wars whenever there's a Senate episode on screen. However, for these 2 episodes being Senate episodes, and from what Senator Chuchi brought to the table, these 2 episodes had me hooked. A lot of times in Senate episodes, I just don't care. I turn off. Like, there's a few exceptions, like the one where Ahsoka and Padme went to Raxus. That was all right. I did enjoy Padme's speech, like the following episode after that, where like she's talking about like defeating the war bill, and like that was cool. Most of the time I don't enjoy Senate stuff, but I enjoyed Senate stuff here. And these might be like 2 of my favorite episodes of The Bad Batch. They're not like my, you know, first and second favorites or anything like that, but they're up there. One of the senators that was in that Senate chamber, we see in Rogue One. Like, I think it's the same lady where she's like, if the Empire has this type of power, what chance do we have? We had Bail there, and then of course we had Senator Riyo Chuchi. And you know what was funny? I was actually thinking about her the other day. Like, I was watching some old Clone Wars clips, and if some of them had her and, you know, Ahsoka, And I'm like, man, I wonder whatever happened to Senator Chuchi. Like, where is she standing, like, with the whole Empire thing? Maybe we'll get her in Bad Batch at some point, and then lo and behold, we get her in this episode. So I do believe everything happens for a reason, you know? And it's so great because Chuchi has always been, like, loyal to the Republic.
There's no way that Pantora will ever have dealings with the Separatists. We will always be loyal to the Republic. We cannot give up on the Republic Senate. Chairman, you must convince the people to remain loyal to our cause.
She's standing up for these clones, the people that fought on her side for years. And then there's effing Rampart. Mother effing Rampart. Urgh. But this episode was actually rather genius in a way because, like, all this hatred and disdain that I've had for Admiral Rampart was just personified throughout these 2 episodes. And you know what they did? They took all of that hatred that I had for him, and they put it all on the Emperor. Because, oh yeah, the Emperor was involved with this episode too. I think I'm kind of like bouncing back and forth between episodes here, but like, because this was a 2-part arc, it makes sense. There's so much crossover between the episodes, like it only makes sense to do so. So Rampart, obviously, the whole episode is trying to get rid of the clones. He's conspiring with Masamita and being like, hey, you need to get rid of this now. You need to, you know, make sure that this bill passes so we can get the Stormtroopers. They've obviously kept what happened to Kamino a secret, saying like, oh, it was a storm that destroyed the facility. Bullshit. Bullshit. Chuchi ends up learning the truth from Slip, but unfortunately there's like this clone assassin that was trying to kill them. I thought at first it might have been Crosshair, but it wasn't. And in the episode, like, Slip ends up contacting someone. I'm like, who are you talking to? Did you call Rex or something? The sniper kills Slip, he kills the guards, and right before he is about to kill Chuchi, who makes the save? Good old Rex. And the place that they go to lay low is Trace and Rafa's hangar. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are we gonna see Trace and Rafa? But then Rex, I think, quickly had said like they're gone. So I'm like, oh, okay. Thought it would have been cool to see them, but I'm sure most people on social media would disagree with me. The trooper that got captured killed himself. Like, he had one of those things in his mouth, right, where you bite down on it and you end up dying. We see it in The Mandalorian as well. And this episode, this specific episode, episode 7, we didn't get any Bad Batch once again. It was all about Senator Chuchi, and you know what, guys? I think by default, since there was no Bad Batch in episode 7 and we have to choose a Bad Batch member of the week, Senator Chuchi is an honorary member of the Bad Batch for this episode, coming in as the member of the week. I loved it when she went to that clone bar and she's like, I want to hear what your needs are. What is it that you guys want? And, you know, obviously one of the clones like fires back at her, being a bit of a jerk, and he's just like, can you get me back in the war? Like, I want to be fighting these insurgents and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, Chuchi brings up the good point of like, well, what happens when you all get old and you can't fight anymore? What happens to you then? And she's kind of trying to get them to think of the long term and being like, look, your days as a soldier are over, but like, you still should have the rights as any citizens should to do what they want. And even in the second episode, towards the very end, like when they all get played and Chuchi's sitting there like, I want to be able to help you guys. I'm never going to stop fighting. Like, I'm like, Chuchi, you freaking rule, girl. I love her willingness to fight, but I also fear that that might cause her death as well at some point. So I say Bad Batch get played. Let me go into a little bit more detail on what happened, right? This episode is called Truth and Consequence. Very fitting name because the truth comes out, but then there's also consequences that come with it. Rex ends up contacting the Bad Batch, so we get the Bad Batch immediately. Rex is there like, hey boys, any chance I could use you for a mission? And Echo kind of accepts the mission without Hunter's approval. And once again, I'm just sitting there like, Echo, again, just with that willingness to want to help out, to be able to do stuff for his brother, especially when Hunter was very hesitant about it because he's like, hey, this is Coruscant, the Empire thinks we're dead, I'd like to keep it that way. They go to Coruscant and they need to get Admiral Rampart's ship. They need to get on that ship and get the command log and show that this dude destroyed Kamino. And that's exactly what they did. They get the proof. They show it to the Senate, the Venators bombarding Kamino. And because things weren't going his way, in comes Palpatine to the Senate. And I went, oh shit. This was the kind of scene that I was waiting for in Andor, but we never got. So I'm so glad that we got it here. And Emperor and Palpatine, like I said before, you guys, he took all that heat that Rampart had, like that disdain that I had for Rampart, and he put it all on himself. And he's like, you know what? You're right. Rampart is guilty as charged. He destroyed Kamino. He needs to be arrested immediately. And I'm sitting there like, okay, Pelps, what are you up to? There's no way you're letting this go down this easy. Like, what are you really getting at here? And then he goes, well, we also have to arrest the other troopers that blindly followed Rampart as well. And this is why we need to pass in my humbled opinion, I'm just the emperor of the galaxy. I can do whatever I want. But just in my humbled opinion, I think that we should have a bill that passes the use of stormtroopers. And I'm like, Palpatine, you fucker! Bad Batch took an L this week, you guys. I know, and it's funny too, because that's another complaint I've seen on social media is people being like, oh, the Bad Batch always win. It's always too predictable. Everything in the show is so predictable. But what happened this week? Palpatine won. Bad Batch and Rex played right into his hands, and he had that backup plan ready, because he knew that Chuchi, because of her persistence, right, was going to call on help. And that's exactly what happened. They got their evidence, and Palpatine said, all right, great, I'm going to take that evidence and I'm going to use it against you. Once again, I unfortunately feel like this is going to get Chuchi killed. She's going to keep fighting for the clones, but in the end, I think it's ultimately going to be futile. I would really love it if, like, she ended up joining the rebellion at some point. Like, I know we don't see her in anything. Like, we haven't seen her in Rebels. We haven't seen her in Rogue One, which also makes me extremely worried that she's going to die, but I can hold out hope. Senator Batoni also played a big part in this episode as well. She was a senator in some of those Senate episodes in Clone Wars. I gotta tell you guys my sequence of notes here when Omega gets the stuff to Chuchi to expose Rampart, right? So I'm like, come on, Omega, get in there. That a girl, Omega. They show the footage, right? Let's go, get exposed, you asshole. Talking about Rampart, of course. And then my next bits of notes. Oh shit, the Emperor. No, Palpatine, you fucker. Like, that whole scene, you guys, had me feeling so many types of ways right there, man. And then that Echo scene afterward had me feeling a certain type of way, and I'm just like, oh, why do you do this to me, Bad Batch? But I do believe that we will see Echo again, you guys. And as far as like a Bad Batch member for this episode, I think this episode was about the entire team. Like, there wasn't necessarily one person that stood out to me, but I think because of what happened at the end of this episode, I feel like I've got to go with Echo. Senator Chuchi for episode 7, Echo for episode 8. These episodes were fantastic. Some really, really good episodes, coming off of a really good episode, in my opinion, last week as well. I love the amount of stuff that they're keeping in from the Clone Wars and just bringing back all these characters that we saw in Clone Wars, that we get to continue their stories here. I love it so much. So now that good old Palps has approved of the Stormtroopers, are we going to see the TKs get their armor upgraded now? Because I feel like we're going to get there at some point, right? If you guys remember, at the end of Clone Wars Season 7, when we see Vader by that Venator, where Ahsoka, quote-unquote died, leaving her lightsaber there, we see Stormtroopers, like not the TK ones that well, obviously they're TKs, but we don't see them in their armor that we see in the Bad Batch. We see them in their, Stormtrooper outfits, which, by the way, are the best Stormtroopers I've ever seen, in my opinion. I would like to see that design used for the Bad Batch. So yeah, you guys, I think that is going to wrap us up for this week. I absolutely love this show, and I cannot wait to see where the rest of this story goes. And I feel like most of the stuff that was in the trailers, from what I recall, has kind of now already been done. So leaving the back half of the season without us knowing much, and I really appreciate that. Next week, we're back to one episode, and I don't think we have another 2-part thing until the finale. So with that in mind, you guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others to help support the channel, and I will see you guys next time.